The alarm bells rang across the Valari capital city as another transport ship exploded in the dark sky above. Ambassador Thylan watched from his office window as burning metal fell like deadly rain onto the crystal towers below. His people were dying, and there was nothing left to do but run. The Krex Empire had been hunting them for 3 years now. What started as border conflicts had become something much worse. The Krex did not want their planets or their resources. They wanted the Valari people dead, all of them, every man, woman, and child across 17 star systems. Thylan turned away from the window and looked at the communication device on his desk. It was their last hope, but also their most dangerous gamble. For 50 years, the galaxy had whispered about the humans from Sol. They called them Deathworlders. They said humans came from a planet so dangerous that it had turned them into monsters. Most species refused to even speak to them. But monsters were exactly what the Valari needed right now. "Sir, the Krex fleet will reach our position in 6 hours," said Captain Velen as he entered the office. His crystal skin was dim with fear. "The evacuation ships are full, but we can only save maybe 10,000 people. There are millions still in the city." Thylan picked up the communication device. It was old technology, designed to send messages across the galaxy. The other council members had voted against using it. They said calling the humans would be like asking one predator to fight another. But Thylan had studied the old records. Humans were different from the Krex. They had something the Krex did not have. They had mercy. "Send this message to the Sol system," Thylan told his communication officer. "Make it as strong as possible." The young Valari nodded and activated the transmitter. Thylan began to speak into the device, knowing these might be the last words his people would ever send to the galaxy. "This is Ambassador Thylan of the Valari Republic. We are sending this message to Earth, to the human people. Our civilization is dying. The Krex Empire has declared war on our entire species. They have destroyed 14 of our worlds. Millions of our people are dead. We have tried to fight, but we are not warriors. We are farmers and artists and teachers. We do not know how to kill." He paused as another explosion shook the building. Through the window, he could see Krex fighters diving down to attack the refugee camps. "We know the galaxy fears you. They call you Deathworlders and Predators. But we have read your history. We know you fight for more than just killing. We know you protect the weak. Please, if there is any mercy in your people, help us. We have children who will never see tomorrow if you do not come. We are begging you. Save us." The transmission ended. Now there was nothing to do but wait and hope. On the other side of the galaxy, the message reached Earth 3 days later. Ji Woo was working the night shift at the Deep Space Communication Array when her computer started beeping. She had been listening to space noise for 5 years, but she had never heard anything like this before. The signal was clearly artificial, but it was not human. The language was completely unknown, but the computer's translation program was working on it. After an hour, words began to appear on her screen. Ji Woo read the message twice before she understood what she was seeing. Then she called her supervisor. "Sir, you need to see this right now," she said into her phone. "We just received a message from aliens, and they are asking for help." 2 hours later, Admiral Tejo was sitting in the Pentagon reading the translated message. Around the table were the most important military leaders on Earth. Chief Intelligence Officer Nari was studying the star charts that came with the message. Fleet Commander Minho was already looking at ship deployment schedules. "Is this real?" asked General Hayes, the Joint Chiefs Chairman. "Are we sure this is not some kind of test or joke?" "The signal came from outside our solar system," Nari said. "The physics are correct. The language pattern is completely different from any human language. This is either real or someone spent years creating the most complex hoax in history." Admiral Tejo studied the message again. The words were simple, but the desperation was clear. An entire species was about to die, and they were asking Earth for help. The problem was that Earth had never had contact with aliens before. For all they knew, this could be a trap. "What do we know about these Krex?" Tejo asked. "Nothing," Nari admitted. "We have never heard of either species before, but the message includes star charts. The Valari system is about 40 light years from here. We could reach it in 2 weeks with our fastest ships. Sir, Minho said quietly, we have to consider that this could be dangerous. We know nothing about alien technology or alien weapons. We could be flying into something we cannot handle. Taiho nodded. That was true. But he kept thinking about one line from the message. We have children who will never see tomorrow if you do not come. How fast can we mobilize the fleet? He asked. Minho looked surprised. Sir, are you saying we should go? I am saying we should be ready to go, Taiho replied. How fast? If we use emergency protocols, we could have a battle group ready in 72 hours. Maybe 200 ships? What about Marines? 50,000, if we pull from every base. Taiho stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the lights of Washington, D.C. Millions of people going about their lives, not knowing that. First contact with aliens had just happened in the form of a desperate cry for help. Sir, General Hayes said, we need to think about this carefully. We have no idea what we would be getting into. This could start a war we cannot win. General, Taiho said without turning around, we have spent 50 years preparing for the day we would meet aliens. We built weapons and ships and trained soldiers for that day. We just never thought it would happen like this. He turned back to face the room. We always assumed that when we met aliens, they would either be hostile or they would be more advanced than us. We never considered that they might need our help. What are you thinking, sir? Nari asked. I am thinking that the galaxy has been watching us for who knows how long. They probably know exactly how dangerous we are. They know about our wars and our weapons and our history. And these Valari people decided to call us anyway. That tells me something important. What does it tell you? It tells me they are desperate, enough to call the monsters for help. And it tells me that maybe being monsters is not always a bad thing. Admiral Taiho walked back to the table and looked at each person in the room. Prep the fleet. We are going to war. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Minho spoke up. Sir, what if this is a trap? What if we get there and find something we cannot handle? Taiho smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just decided to hunt. Then the galaxy is about to learn why Earth is called a death world, and why humans are the monsters they have been afraid of. He picked up the communication device. Send a message back to these Valari. Tell them help is coming. Tell them the humans have received their SOS, and we are on our way. As the meeting ended and the military leaders hurried away to prepare for humanity's first interstellar war, Taiho remained at the table. He read the alien message one more time, focusing on the words that had convinced him to act. We know you protect the weak. He hoped the Valari were right about that. Because in 72 hours, Earth's children would be flying into the unknown to fight monsters they had never seen, for people they had never met. And if the humans were truly the predators the galaxy thought they were, then the Krex Empire was about to discover what happened when Deathworlders decided to protect someone. The hunt was about to begin. Earth moved like a machine built for war. Within 6 hours of Admiral Taiho's decision, military bases across 7 continents were buzzing with activity. Soldiers who had been eating breakfast found themselves loading weapons and checking equipment. Ships that had been in routine maintenance were suddenly being rushed back to combat readiness. Captain Hyon stood on the bridge of the battleship Indomitable and watched as supply ships moved around his vessel like busy ants. His crew was working faster than he had ever seen them work before. They all knew what was happening. Humanity was about to meet aliens for the first time, and it was not going to be a peaceful meeting. Sir, engineering reports all systems ready, said his first officer. Weapons are loaded and tested. We have enough ammunition for a 6-month campaign. What about the other ships? Hyon asked. Captain Sola reports the Stormbringer is ready for launch. All fighter squadrons are loaded and pilots are briefed. The Marine assault ships finished loading 20 minutes ago. Hyon nodded. In 36 hours, Earth had assembled the largest military fleet in human history. 200 warships, from massive battleships like his own to fast-attack cruisers and carrier ships full of fighters. 50,000 Marines were packed into assault transports, ready to fight in alien gravity on alien worlds. Other species might have needed months to organize such a force. Humans had done it in a day and a half. Sir, his communications officer called out, Admiral Taiho is requesting all ship captains for final briefing. The briefing room on the command ship Defiance was crowded with the faces of Earth's best military leaders. Captain Sola sat near the front, her short black hair still damp from the shower. She had been testing her fighters right up until the meeting started. Marine Colonel Junho looked tired but determined. His soldiers had been training for alien combat scenarios that they had made up just yesterday. Admiral Tejo entered the room, and the talking stopped immediately. Behind him came Dr. Rena, a xenobiologist who had volunteered to join the fleet. She would be humanity's first alien contact specialist, assuming they found any aliens left to contact. "Ladies and gentlemen," Tejo began, "in 6 hours we will jump to hyperspace and begin humanity's first interstellar military campaign. I want to make sure everyone understands what we are walking into." He activated the wall display, showing a star map of the Valari system. "Intelligence estimates that we will arrive to find the Valari homeworld under attack. We know nothing about Krek's military capabilities. We know nothing about their weapons or their ships or their tactics. We are flying blind into a combat situation against an unknown enemy." Commander Do-hyun from Intelligence stood up. "Sir, we have been analyzing the alien message for any tactical information. The Valari describe themselves as peaceful farmers and artists. They have no military tradition. The fact that they have survived this long suggests the Kreks are not using their full strength, or they are playing with their prey." "What does that tell us about the Kreks?" Captain Sola asked. "It tells us they are predators. But they may be lazy predators. They expect easy victories. They probably have not faced serious resistance before." Tejo nodded. "Which brings us to our advantage. The Kreks have never fought humans. They have never seen Earth military doctrine. They have never faced deathworld tactics." He changed the display to show Earth's military history. Pictures of ancient battles flashed by, then modern warfare, then space combat simulations. "Every human in this fleet comes from a planet that has been trying to kill us for 200,000 years. We have survived ice ages, plagues, volcanic explosions, asteroid impacts, and each other. We have fought wars that killed millions of people, and we learned from every single one." The room was completely quiet. These were professional soldiers, but hearing it put that way made them realize just how unusual their planet really was. "The aliens call us Deathworlders," Tejo continued. "They think we are monsters. Maybe they are right. But today, we are going to be monsters for the right reasons." Dr. Rena stepped forward. "I want to remind everyone that our primary mission is to save the Valari people. Yes, we may have to fight the Kreks, but our goal is protection, not conquest. The first aliens we meet should not remember us only as warriors." "Understood," Tejo said. "But make no mistake, if the Kreks want to fight, we will give them a fight they will never forget. Captain Hyun, your battleship group will be our main attack force. Captain Sola, your fighters will provide cover and reconnaissance. Colonel Junho, your Marines will handle ground operations and refugee protection." The meeting continued for another hour as they planned for every situation they could think of. How to communicate with aliens. How to tell friendly aliens from hostile ones. How to fight in unknown gravity. How to protect civilians who might not even breathe the same air as humans. As the captains left to return to their ships, Captain Hyun stayed behind to speak with the Admiral privately. "Sir, can I ask you something?" Hyun said. "Of course. Do you really think we can win this? We have no idea what we are facing." Tejo was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. "Captain, 3 days ago, did you think we would be preparing to fight aliens? No, sir. Did you think we could assemble this fleet in 36 hours? No, sir. Did you think humans would ever receive a message from across the galaxy asking us to save someone? No, sir. But here we are, ready to jump to another star system and fight for people we have never met, using weapons we have never tested against enemies we have never seen. If we can do all that, I think we can win a battle." Hyun nodded and left to return to his ship. But Tejo's confidence was stronger than he showed. The truth was that he had no idea if they could win. But he knew one thing for certain. If humans were going to lose their first interstellar war, they were going to lose it fighting for something good. 2 hours later, the fleet was ready. 200 ships hanging in space near the moon, looking like a metal constellation against the black sky. Each ship was loaded with the most advanced weapons Earth could build. Each crew was trained to fight in ways that no other species had ever imagined. Admiral Tejo sat in his command chair on the bridge of the Defiance and looked at the navigation display. In a few minutes, they would jump to hyperspace and travel farther from Earth than any human had ever gone. They would arrive at an alien world and possibly start humanity's first interstellar war. "Sir," his navigation officer said, "all ships report ready for jump. Communications, send one final message to Earth Command. Tell them we are beginning our mission. Tell them that if we do not return, they should remember that we went to the stars to save someone, not to conquer them." "Yes, sir." Tejo took a deep breath. Somewhere 40 light years away, an alien species was dying while calling for help from the monsters of Earth. It was time to see if the monsters could also be heroes. "All ships, this is Admiral Tejo. Today we make first contact with alien species. Today we represent all of humanity to the galaxy. Let us show them that Deathworlders can be guardians too." He paused, looking at the star field ahead of them. "Fleet, jump!" The ships disappeared in flashes of light, carrying 50,000 human warriors toward their destiny among the stars. Behind them, Earth continued spinning in its orbit, not knowing if its children would return as conquering heroes or if they would return at all. But for the first time in human history, they were not fighting for themselves. They were fighting for strangers who had asked for help, and that made all the difference. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Volari system and immediately knew they were too late to prevent a massacre. The space around the alien homeworld was filled with debris. Broken ships floated like metal bones in the darkness. Some of them were still burning. "Sir," the sensor officer on the Defiance reported, "I am reading 3 large vessels in orbit around the planet. They are firing on the surface." Admiral Tejo studied the tactical display. The 3 ships were enormous, each one the size of a small city. They hung in space like metal mountains, raining death down on the world below. Between them and the planet, smaller vessels moved in patrol patterns. "What about the planet itself?" Tejo asked. "Heavy damage to the major cities, but I am detecting life signs. Millions of them. The population is still alive, but they are hiding underground." Captain Hyon's voice came over the communication system from the Indomitable. "Sir, should we announce ourselves?" "Negative. Combat positions first. I want to see what we are dealing with." The human fleet spread out as they approached the planet. The Kreks had not noticed them yet. They were too busy with their target practice on the helpless world below. Commander Do-hyun was monitoring Kreks communications from his intelligence station. "Sir, I am picking up their broadcasts. The computer is translating now." "Put it on speakers." The bridge filled with harsh alien voices, speaking in a language that sounded like metal scraping against stone. But the computer's translation was clear enough. "Surface resistance eliminated in Sector 7, proceeding to population centers in Sector 8. Confirmed. No significant defensive capability detected. This species provides no support. Request permission to begin harvesting operations. Permission granted. Leave no survivors." The bridge was silent as the humans listened to the aliens casually discussing genocide. These were not soldiers fighting a war. These were predators playing with food. "Sir," Captain Sola's voice came over the radio from the Stormbringer, "my fighters are ready to launch. Give me the word and I can have those patrol ships cleared in 10 minutes. Tejo looked at the tactical display again. The 3 Kreks dreadnoughts were massive, but they were designed for attacking planets, not fighting other warships. They were slow, and their weapons were pointed down at the surface. The smaller patrol ships were spread out and not expecting trouble. The Kreks had made a classic Predator mistake. They had assumed they were the most dangerous thing in the system. "All ships, this is Admiral Tejo. We are looking at our first glimpse of alien technology, and it belongs to a species that is currently committing genocide. Our mission parameters have not changed. We are here to save the Volari. But to do that, we need to remove the Kreks from this system." He paused, watching as the dreadnoughts continued their bombardment of the planet below. "Captain Hyon, take your battleship group and engage the dreadnoughts. Captain Sola, launch all fighters and clear the patrol ships. All other vessels, spread out and be ready for anything we have not seen yet." "Sir," his communications officer said, "should we try to contact the Kreks first? Demand their surrender?" Tejo thought about that for a moment. Then he remembered the alien voices discussing harvesting operations and leaving no survivors. Open a channel to the lead Krex vessel. Channel open, sir. Krex vessels. This is Admiral Tai-Ho of the human fleet. You are firing on a defenseless population. Cease your attack immediately and withdraw from this system, or we will remove you by force. The response came quickly. The lead dreadnought turned its massive guns away from the planet and toward the human fleet. Unknown vessels, you are interfering in Krex Empire business. Withdraw or be destroyed. I guess that answers that, Tai-Ho said. All ships, engage. What happened next would be talked about across the galaxy for generations. The human fleet moved like nothing the Krex had ever seen before. Captain Sola's fighters poured out of the Stormbringer like angry insects, their small ships dancing between Krex weapons fire with impossible grace. The patrol ships tried to intercept them, but human pilots had trained in Earth's gravity wells and asteroid fields. Fighting in open space was easy. Captain Hyon brought the Indomitable directly toward the lead dreadnought, his ship's weapons charging as he closed the distance. The Krex ship fired first, massive plasma bolts that should have vaporized any vessel. But the Indomitable twisted away from the attack, its engines screaming as it dove under the alien ship's guns. Target their weapon systems, Hyon ordered. I want them alive but helpless. The Indomitable's main guns spoke, sending streams of concentrated energy into the dreadnought's weapon ports. The alien ship shuddered as explosions bloomed along its hull. Within minutes, its bombardment of the planet had stopped. The second dreadnought tried to run, but Captain Minho's cruiser group was waiting. Human ships surrounded the massive vessel like wolves around a wounded bear. They did not try to destroy it. Instead, they methodically disabled its engines and weapons, leaving it floating helpless in space. The third dreadnought fought to the end, its weapons firing wildly in all directions. But human ships were designed for three-dimensional combat, in space. The Krex had clearly spent so much time attacking defenseless planets that they had forgotten how to fight real opponents. When the battle ended, 3 Krex dreadnoughts were floating dead in space, their crews either surrendered or ejected in escape pods. The patrol ships were destroyed or captured, and not a single human vessel had been lost. All ships report minimal damage, Captain, Hyon announced over the fleet communication channel. The system is secure. Admiral Tai-Ho allowed himself a small smile. Colonel Junho, take your Marines down to the planet, find the Volari and let them know help has arrived. The first human shuttles landed on the alien world 30 minutes later. Colonel Junho stepped out onto soil that no human had ever touched before, breathing air that had never filled human lungs. His Marines spread out around the landing zone, weapons ready but not threatening. They found the Volari hiding in underground shelters that had been carved from crystal. The aliens were unlike anything humans had imagined. They were tall and thin, with skin that looked like living gemstone. When light hit them, they seemed to glow from within. Dr. Rena approached the first group of Volari survivors carefully, her hands empty and visible. She had studied alien psychology for years, but this was all theory until now. We are humans, she said slowly, hoping her translation device was working. We received your message. We came to help. The aliens stared at her in silence. Then one of them, an elderly Volari with crystal skin that was dim with age, stepped forward. You are the Deathworlders, he said in heavily accented but understandable English. You came. Yes, Dr. Rena replied. We came. The old Volari fell to his knees and liquid light began streaming from his eyes. I am Elder Thylon. I sent the message to your people. I never believed you would actually come. Doctor. Rena knelt down next to him. We received your SOS. We came as fast as we could. But the Krex ships, Thylon said, looking up at the sky, are no longer a problem, Colonel Junho said quietly. Your people are safe now. Around them, more Volari emerged from the underground shelters. Children with skin like bright jewels ran to their parents. Adults looked up at the sky and saw human ships instead of Krex dreadnoughts. For the first time in months, they were not afraid. But Elder Thylon was looking at the human soldiers with something like wonder in his eyes. The galaxy told us you were monsters. They said Deathworlders were too dangerous to contact. Dr. Rena smiled. Maybe we are monsters. But sometimes monsters can be useful. Your message said the Kreks had destroyed 14 worlds, Colonel Junho said. How many of your people are left? Thylin's glow dimmed. This is our last world. 17 million survivors from a population of billions. The Kreks did not just want to conquer us. They wanted to erase us completely. The Colonel's face went hard. Well, they failed. And they are going to pay for what they have done. Above them, Admiral Taiho was receiving reports from across the system. The Kreks had not just been attacking this one world. They had built prison camps on the system's moons where they were holding Volari survivors from other worlds. There were mining operations using Volari slaves. There were research facilities where they had been experimenting on captured aliens. Sir, Commander Do-Yun reported, this was not just an invasion. This was systematic extermination with a side of scientific study. The Kreks have been treating the Volari like laboratory animals. Taiho studied the intelligence reports and felt his anger growing. This was not war. This was not even conquest. This was evil in its purest form. Change of mission, he announced to the fleet. We are not just saving the Volari. We are going to make sure the Kreks Empire never does this to anyone else. Sir? Captain Hyon asked. We are going to war, Captain. Real war. And we are going to show the galaxy what happens when Deathworlders decide to hunt. The human armada split into 3 hunting groups, each targeting a different piece of the Kreks Empire. What had started as a rescue mission had become something much larger. The humans had seen what the Kreks did to defenseless species, and they had decided that such behavior could not be allowed to continue. Admiral Minho led Task Force Alpha to the Kreks supply lines that fed their war machine. His ships moved like ghosts through space, using stealth technology that the Kreks had never encountered before. They found massive cargo vessels carrying weapons and food to Kreks fleets across the galaxy. Target the engines only, Minho ordered, as his ships surrounded a Kreks supply convoy. I want them alive, but stranded. The attack was over in minutes. Kreks ships that had been traveling for weeks suddenly found themselves floating dead in space, their engines destroyed by precise weapons. Fire. The crews ejected in escape pods, watching helplessly as human ships disappeared back into the darkness. Commander Nari worked with Minho to turn the Kreks transportation network against itself. Her intelligence teams had broken Kreks communication codes and were now sending false orders through their command system. Sir, she reported from her intelligence station, I have convinced 3 Kreks fleets that they are needed for emergency defense of their home systems. They are abandoning their current missions and heading home. What about the supply schedules? Changed. Half the Kreks military will be waiting for supplies that are going to the wrong planets. Minho smiled. Humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years, and they had learned that the best way to defeat an enemy was to make them defeat themselves. Meanwhile, Captain Do-Yun led Task Force Beta in a campaign of psychological warfare that was breaking Kreks morale across the galaxy. His ships would appear at the edge of Kreks systems, engage their fleets just long enough to destroy a few ships, then disappear before reinforcements could arrive. But the real weapon was information. Do-Yun's teams were broadcasting the destruction of Kreks forces across their own communication networks. Every Kreks ship in the galaxy could watch as their most powerful fleets were torn apart by the mysterious human vessels. Sir, his communications officer reported, we are intercepting Kreks military communications. Their fleet commanders are requesting permission to withdraw from forward positions. What is High Command telling them? They are ordering them to hold position and fight. But the fleet commanders are starting to ignore those orders. The Kreks had ruled through fear for so long that they had forgotten what it felt like to be afraid. Now they were experiencing terror for the first time, and they did not know how to handle it. The most audacious operation belonged to Captain Sola and Task Force Gamma. Her mission was to strike at the heart of Kreks military power, the command station in the Nexus cluster. It was a massive space fortress that had never been attacked in 500 years of Kreks expansion. Sola's approach was typically human. Instead of trying to break through the station's defenses, she flew her fighters directly into the middle of them. All fighters, this is Storm Leader, she announced as her squadron dove toward the station. Remember, we are not trying to destroy this place. We are trying to capture it. Keep your weapons on precision settings. The Krex defenders had never seen anything like human fighter tactics. Sola's pilots flew their small ships through the station's weapon grids like they were racing through an obstacle course. The Krex gunners could not track targets that moved with such impossible grace. Sergeant Kira led the Marine assault team that boarded the station through a cargo bay that Sola's fighters had cleared. The fighting that followed was brutal but brief. Krex soldiers were used to overpowering weaker species. They had never faced opponents who fought back with equal ferocity. Sector 7 secured, Kira reported over her radio as her team moved through the station's corridors. Proceeding to Command Center. The Krex station commander surrendered after 20 minutes of room-to-room fighting. When Captain Sola walked onto his bridge, she found him staring at displays showing the destruction of Krex fleets across the galaxy. "What are you?" he asked in broken English. "We are humans," Sola replied, "and you have been hunting people who asked us for protection." Within 6 months, the Krex empire that had dominated this section of the galaxy for centuries was collapsing. Their fleets were destroyed or scattered. Their supply lines were cut. Their communication networks were compromised. Most importantly, their reputation for invincibility was shattered. Other species across the galaxy watched the war with growing amazement. The Hexaron Trade Federation called emergency sessions to discuss these new deathworlders who fought like nothing they had ever seen. The Christek Collective sent diplomatic messages to Earth asking for non-aggression pacts. But the most important audience was the liberated populations on former Krex worlds. Captain Hyun's battle group had arrived at Kalara Prime just hours before a Krex extinction fleet was scheduled to sterilize the planet. The local population was a species of peaceful aquatic beings who had been forced into slave labor. They came from nowhere, the Kalaran leader told Dr. Rena, as human Marines helped evacuate civilians from the combat zone. "One moment we were waiting to die, and the next moment the sky was full of human ships destroying our oppressors." Dr. Rena was documenting everything for her reports back to Earth. First contact with multiple alien species was providing more information than human scientists had dreamed of obtaining. "What will you do now that you are free?" she asked. "We do not know," the Kalaran admitted. "We have been slaves for so long that we have forgotten how to be free. But the humans have offered to help us rebuild." Similar scenes were playing out across dozens of worlds as the human fleet liberated populations that had been under Krex control for generations. Each species was different, but they all had the same reaction to their human liberators: amazement that Deathworlders had come to save them instead of conquer them. Back on the flagship Defiance, Admiral Taiho was receiving reports from across the war zone. The Krex Empire was finished as a military power, but there was still one problem remaining. "Sir," Commander Nari reported, "our intelligence indicates that the Krex Emperor has retreated to their home system with the remnants of his fleet. They are preparing something called the Great Devouring." "What is that?" "We are not certain, but intercepted communications suggest it is a weapon capable of destroying entire star systems. The Emperor appears to be planning a final attack that will kill millions of people, including the liberated populations." Taiho studied the star charts showing the Krex home system. It was heavily defended and far from any human base. Getting there would require the entire fleet, and they would be fighting the Krex on their home territory. "How many ships can we muster for a final assault?" he asked. "All of them, sir. Every human vessel in the galaxy, plus volunteer ships from the liberated worlds. The aliens want to fight alongside us." Taiho nodded. It was fitting that humanity's first galactic war would end with a combined fleet of humans and aliens fighting together against a common enemy. "Send word to all task forces. We are regrouping for a final battle. Target the Krex home system." "Sir," his navigation officer said. "Intelligence estimates the Krex have 500 ships defending their homeworld, plus this superweapon. We will be outnumbered." "Then it will be a fair fight," Taiho replied. "Humans do their best work when they are outnumbered." As the various task forces began moving toward their rendezvous point, Captain Hyun received a personal message from his crew. They had been watching the war coverage and the reports of liberated worlds, and they wanted him to know something. "Sir," his first officer said, "the crew wants you to know that we are proud to be here. 6 months ago, we thought we were just soldiers. Now we know we are something more." "What are we?" Hyun asked. We are the guardians the galaxy did not know it needed. Heon looked out at the stars and thought about that. When they had left Earth, they had been deathworlders going to fight aliens. Now they were protectors leading a coalition of species against genocidal monsters. Set course for the rendezvous point, he ordered. It is time to end this war. Behind them, the liberated worlds were already beginning to rebuild. Ahead of them waited the final confrontation with an empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. And around them flew ships from a dozen different species, all united behind the human flag. The predators had become the prey. Now it was time to finish the hunt. News of the human military campaign spread across the galactic communication networks like wildfire. Species that had never heard of Earth suddenly found themselves watching daily reports of human fleets destroying Krex forces with impossible efficiency. The same deathworlders that the galaxy had spent decades avoiding were now the most talked-about species in known space. On the trade world of Nexus Prime, Ambassador Jiho of the newly established Earth Diplomatic Corps stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council. He was the first human to ever address the Council, and the chamber was packed with representatives from hundreds of species who had come to see the Deathworlder in person. Honored delegates, Jiho began, speaking into a translation device that would carry his words to every species in the room. 6 months ago, your people called us monsters. You said humans were too dangerous for civilized contact. You built your policies around avoiding us. The chamber was completely silent. These aliens had spent years discussing the human problem, but none of them had ever expected to be talking to a human directly. You were right, Jiho continued. We are monsters. We come from a world that has been trying to kill us for hundreds of thousands of years. We have fought wars that destroyed entire continents. We have built weapons that could sterilize planets. We are exactly as dangerous as you thought we were. A ripple of nervous movement went through the assembled delegates. Several species were already reaching for their communication devices, probably to send emergency messages to their home worlds. But here is what you did not understand, Jiho said, his voice growing stronger. We are your monsters now. When the Valari called for help, we came. When we saw the Krex committing genocide, we stopped them. When innocent species needed protection, we became their protectors. He paused and looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many alien faces as possible. The question you need to ask yourselves is this. What kind of galaxy do you want to live in? One where strong species prey on weak ones without consequence? Or one where someone is willing to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves? The Hexagon Trade Federation representative stood up. His species looked like walking crystals, and his voice sounded like wind chimes when he spoke. Human ambassador, your people have destroyed an empire that had existed for 1,000 years. You have changed the balance of power in this entire region of space. What gives you the right to make such decisions? Jiho smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. The same thing that gave the Krex the right to commit genocide, the ability to do it. The difference is that we chose to use our power to save people instead of killing them. Another delegate stood up. This one was from the Christek Collective, a species that looked like living machines. What assurance do we have that you will not turn your weapons on us next? How do we know you will not become the next galactic empire? You do not, Jiho replied honestly. But let me tell you what we have done since we arrived in this galaxy. We have liberated 47 worlds. We have freed 12 different species from slavery. We have provided food and medical aid to 30 million refugees. We have not claimed a single planet for ourselves. He walked closer to the delegates, and several of them moved back instinctively. We could have taken anything we wanted. We could have demanded tribute from the worlds we liberated. We could have built an empire twice the size of the Krex. But we did not. Do you know why? The chamber waited for his answer. Because we already have a home. We do not need to conquer anyone else's. The session continued for hours as delegates asked questions and tried to understand what the arrival of humans meant for galactic politics. But the real discussions were happening in private communication channels between species leaders. The war coverage was being broadcast across the galaxy, and every species could see human tactical capabilities in action. Captain Sola's fighters, moving through Krek's defenses like they were dancing. Captain Hyon's battleships taking on vessels 10 times their size and winning. Marine units like Sergeant Kira's team fighting in conditions that would kill most species. On the industrial world of Korthax, the local government watched recordings of human ships rescuing civilians from a Krek's prison complex. The rescue had been performed under heavy fire, with human pilots flying their ships through weapon grids that should have been impossible to survive. "How are they doing that?" asked the Korthax defense minister. "We do not know," replied his intelligence chief. "Our analysts have studied their ship movements for weeks. They are operating at acceleration levels that should crush their crews, making turns that should tear their ships apart, and fighting at ranges where their weapons should not be effective. Are their ships that much better than ours?" "No, sir. According to our technical analysis, human ships are advanced, but not remarkably so. The difference is not in their technology. It is in their tactics and their training." The defense minister watched as a human fighter pilot threaded his ship between two Krek's destroyers, fired a precision shot that disabled both vessels, then accelerated away before their return fire could reach him. "Get me a communication channel to Earth," he ordered. "I want to discuss a mutual defense agreement." Similar conversations were happening across the galaxy as species realized that the humans were not just powerful, they were reliable. When they said they would protect someone, they did it. When they promised to leave after the fighting was over, they actually left. But the most important audience was not watching from government chambers or military headquarters. They were watching from refugee camps and liberated worlds where human forces had arrived just in time to prevent massacres. Dr. Rena had been documenting first contact with 17 different alien species over the past 6 months. Each contact had been different, but they all shared one common element. None of them had expected their rescuers to be Deathworlders. "Why did you come?" asked the leader of the Pale Folk, a species of gentle artists whose world had been turned into a slave colony by the Kreks. "We are not warriors. We have nothing to offer you in trade. Why did you risk your lives for us?" "Because someone asked us to," Dr. Rena replied, "and because it was the right thing to do." The alien looked confused. "But your people gain nothing from this. You spend your resources and risk your lives, and you ask for nothing in return. This is not logical behavior for a predator species." Dr. Rena thought about that for a moment. "Maybe that is what makes us different from other predators. We choose who we hunt." Meanwhile, Admiral Tejo was receiving intelligence reports that showed the full scope of what the human intervention had accomplished. The Krek's empire was completely broken. Their military was destroyed, their government was in chaos, and their remaining territories were either declaring independence or asking for human protection. "Sir," Commander Nari reported, "we are getting requests for assistance from 43 different worlds. Former Krek's territories want human protection while they establish new governments. Former slave worlds want help rebuilding their societies. 3 different species have asked if they can join the human alliance permanently." "What about the major galactic powers?" Tejo asked. Mixed reactions. Some are terrified of us and are building defensive alliances. Others are sending diplomatic messages requesting trade agreements and non-aggression pacts. The Hexagon Federation has offered to serve as a neutral meeting ground for human-alien negotiations. Tejo studied the intelligence reports and realized that humanity had accidentally become a major galactic power in less than a year. They had arrived as rescuers and ended up as the dominant military force in this entire region of space. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "priority message from Earth Command." "Put it through." The face of General Hayes appeared on the main screen. "Admiral, congratulations on your victories. Earth is proud of what you have accomplished out there." "Thank you, sir. What are our orders?" "That is what I am calling about. The President has decided to establish a permanent Earth presence in this region. You are being promoted to Supreme Commander of Galactic Operations. Your mission is to maintain the peace you have created and to serve as Earth's representative to the galactic community." Tejo felt a moment of vertigo as he realized what that meant. "Sir, are you saying we are not coming home?" "Some of you will, Admiral. We are sending relief crews and colonists to establish permanent bases. But the galaxy needs to know that Earth stands behind its commitments. You saved these people, and now you need to help them rebuild." After the communication ended, Tejo sat in his command chair and looked out at the stars. 6 months ago, he had been planning for humanity's first contact with aliens. Now he was responsible for governing a region of space larger than Earth's solar system. But as he watched human ships working alongside alien vessels to provide humanitarian aid to refugee populations, he realized that maybe this was always how it was supposed to happen. Maybe Deathworlders were not meant to conquer the galaxy. Maybe they were meant to protect it. The irony was not lost on him. The galaxy had spent decades afraid of making contact with humans. Now they could not imagine how they had survived without them. The combined fleet that assembled for the final assault on the Krex home system was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. 200 human warships flew alongside vessels from 37 different alien species, all united under the simple goal of ending the Krex threat forever. Admiral Taiho stood on the bridge of the Defiance and watched as the fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Krex system. What they found waiting for them was the largest concentration of military power in Krex history. 500 warships surrounded their home world, while massive orbital platforms bristled with weapons. But at the center of it all was something that made even the human commanders pause. A structure the size of a small moon hung in space near the Krex home world, crackling with energy that made the sensors scream warnings. "Sir," the science officer reported, "that structure is drawing power directly from the system's star. Energy. Readings are off our scales." "The Star Eater," Commander Nari said grimly. "Our intelligence was correct. They really built a weapon that can destroy entire star systems." Captain Hyon's voice came over the communication channel from the Indomitable. "Sir, we are detecting massive energy buildup in that weapon. They are preparing to fire." "Target?" Taiho asked. "Unknown, but given the power levels, they could probably reach any system within 50 light years." Taiho realized with growing horror what the Krex Emperor was planning. If he could not save his empire, he would use his final moments to destroy as many innocent worlds as possible. The weapon was not pointed at the attacking fleet. It was aimed at the liberated worlds that lay helpless behind them. "All ships, this is Admiral Taiho," he announced to the entire fleet. "The Krex are preparing to fire a superweapon at civilian populations. We have maybe an hour before they can complete their targeting sequence. This is no longer about defeating an enemy. This is about preventing the murder of billions of innocent people." The fleet began moving toward the Krex positions, but the enemy was ready for them. The battle that followed was beyond anything the galaxy had witnessed before. Krex ships that had been holding back their most advanced technology finally revealed weapons that could tear holes in space itself. Human vessels that had seemed invincible suddenly found themselves facing opponents who were willing to die to take them down. Captain Sola led her fighters in a desperate attack on the Star Eater's power collectors, trying to disrupt the weapon's charging sequence. Her pilots flew through energy fields that killed several of them instantly. But they pressed their attack with the kind of determination that only Deathworlders could muster. "Storm Leader to Defiance," she reported over the radio. "The weapon is too heavily shielded. We cannot break through the power collectors." Captain Hyon brought the Indomitable directly against the Krex flagship, trading massive damage for the chance to close distance with the enemy command ship. His vessel was burning, and his crew was taking heavy casualties, but he refused to withdraw. "Sir," his first officer reported, "we have lost main power to Weapons Grid 3. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. "Can we still fight?" Hyon asked. "Yes, sir, but not for much longer." The battle was not going well for the combined fleet. The Krex were fighting with the desperation of a species that knew it was about to die, and they were taking terrible tolls on their attackers. Alien ships that had volunteered to fight alongside the humans were being destroyed faster than they could be replaced. But then Chief Engineer Sunho, aboard the Defiance, had an idea that was so dangerous it might actually work. "Sir," he called to Admiral Taiho, "I think I can stop the Star Eater, but it will require every ship in the fleet to link their power systems together." "Explain." "If we can create a massive energy barrier around the weapon when it fires, we might be able to contain the blast. The energy will have nowhere to go except back into the weapon itself." "What are the chances of success?" "Unknown, sir. No one has ever tried anything like this before." "What are the chances of survival for the ships involved?" Sunho was quiet for a moment. "Also unknown, sir." Taiho looked at the tactical display showing the Star Eater's charging sequence. They had maybe 20 minutes before the weapon would fire at the defenseless worlds behind them. There was no time for careful planning or detailed analysis. "Do it!" he ordered. "Send instructions to all ships. Tell them what we are attempting." The response from the fleet was immediate and unanimous. Every captain, human and alien alike, agreed to link their power systems for the desperate gambit. Ships that had been fighting each other's enemies for months now connected their most vital systems in an act of trust that went beyond military alliance. As the Star Eater reached full charge, the combined fleet moved into position around it. Hundreds of ships formed a sphere of metal and energy around the massive weapon, their power systems linked in a network that had never been attempted before. "Sir," Sunho reported, "all ships report power linkage complete. We are as ready as we can be." "What happens if this does not work?" Taiho asked. "Then the weapon fires normally, destroys half the fleet, and goes on to kill billions of civilians. And if it does work? Then we contain a blast equal to a small supernova and hope our ships are strong enough to survive it." The Star Eater fired. The energy released was beyond anything in recorded galactic history, a beam of pure destruction that should have reached across space to sterilize entire worlds instead found itself trapped within the energy barrier created by the combined fleet. The contained explosion lit up the entire system like a second sun. Ships throughout the fleet were battered by energy feedback that overloaded their systems and killed their crews. The Indomitable lost main power completely and began drifting, dead in space. The Stormbringer's fighter bays were vented to vacuum as her hull cracked under the strain, but the barrier held. When the energy finally dissipated, the Star Eater was gone, consumed by its own weapon. The Krek's home world was intact, but powerless, its orbital defenses destroyed by the energy backlash. The surviving Krek's fleet was scattered and broken. Admiral Taiho tried to stand up from his command chair and discovered that the energy feedback had damaged the Defiance's gravity generators. He was floating in zero gravity on a bridge filled with smoke and sparking electronics. "Damage report," he called out. "Sir," his communications officer replied weakly, "we have lost 47 ships. Another 100 are severely damaged, but the weapon is destroyed and the Krek's fleet is surrendering." The Krek's Emperor's surrender came over the communication channels 20 minutes later. His voice was broken and defeated as he offered the unconditional capitulation of his empire. "Human Admiral," he said, "we surrender. Our people are finished. Do with us what you will." Taiho looked around his damaged bridge at his injured crew, then thought about the cost of this war. Thousands of human sailors and soldiers were dead. Millions of aliens had died in the fighting. Entire worlds had been devastated. "Krek's Emperor," he replied, "your empire is dissolved. Your military is disbanded. Your people will be relocated to worlds where they can live peacefully under galactic supervision. Any Kreks found committing acts of aggression against other species will be dealt with by human forces. And what of those responsible for the genocide? What of me?" Taiho was quiet for a long moment. "You will stand trial before the species you tried to exterminate. Justice will be decided by your victims, not by your conquerors." In the months that followed, the galaxy watched as humans kept their promise. Krek's war criminals were tried by the species they had wronged. Krek's civilians were relocated to carefully chosen worlds where they could build new lives without threatening their neighbors. The former Krek's territories were divided among the liberated populations, with human forces providing security during the transition. Elder Thylin, now representing the Valari in the new Galactic Alliance, stood before the reformed Galactic Council to address the changed political reality. 6 months ago, he said, my people sent a desperate message across space to a species we had never met. We called to them in our darkest hour, asking for help from the monsters of the galaxy. The chamber was packed with representatives from hundreds of species, including a full human delegation led by Ambassador Jiho. They came, Thylin continued, not as conquerors, but as protectors. They fought not for territory or resources, but for the simple principle that strong people should protect weak ones. They taught us that predators are not defined by what they hunt, but by what they choose to protect. He turned to look directly at the human delegation. The galaxy once called, you Deathworlders, and feared to contact you. We were half right. You are from a death world, and that made you exactly what this galaxy needed. Admiral Taiho, now serving as Earth's permanent representative to the Galactic Council, stood up to address the assembly. When we received the Valari message, he said, we made a choice. We could have ignored it and remained safely isolated on Earth. We could have come here as conquerors and built an empire. Instead, we chose to come as guardians. He looked around the chamber at the faces of dozens of alien species. That choice changed everything. Not just for the Krex or the Valari, but for all of us. We learned that first contact does not have to be about conquest or trade or territory.